There was something that happened to me that we you briefly mentioned hearing about before the show. It's that I got denied a loan for a home, and that was shocking to me because look, I'm not trying to be like a braggart. We have a successful company here, and I wanted to get to get a small house. It's relatively small. And the bank said no, and they sent false credit information to me.
So weird.
It felt like I was just told you are not allowed. It was 3 months of runaround, constantly asking for new documents, and something weird happened. Maybe it was a bad company. That could be the case. But we are seeing this thing with BlackRock. These firms that just get essentially free money from the Fed, and they can outbid any working class person to buy up this property. And we're watching them buy up property like crazy and then turn them into rental properties, where we're going to end up having the millennial generation right now entering their 40s. Right, we're old people at this point. They have kids. The kids are going off to college in some instances, but they're unable to own property, which means they're going to have less wealth to transfer to the next generation. They're not going to have something they control. Not only that, they're going to be beholden to student loan debt and to their landlords, which are going to be big firms.
Yeah, and if you think about wealth creation, it's something that obviously I spend a lot of time talking about. The way that you create wealth is through equity. And when I say equity, I don't mean equity in the sort of critical race theory equity. I mean in the financial terms of equity, having ownership in something. So ways that you create equity. You have equity by building a business. Good for you. American dream, doing that. You may not sort of have the ability to do that, but you invest in the stock market and you participate in the equity increases of other businesses. Maybe you work for a private company and you're able to get stock options. So you get to own a piece of the business that you're working for. You own a house and you get equity. Ownership is wealth creation. And so limiting those opportunities by government interference in the free market leads to less wealth for everyone. And that's the frustrating part for me. My background, we talked about being a recovering investment banker, but I'm the first person in my immediate family who graduated from college. My dad was an electrician. His parents went through the Great Depression and were super poor and grew up on the west side of Chicago. That's where he grew up. And so he came out of there and worked really hard and saved up a bunch of money and then sent me to school and couldn't afford it. So then I had to pay down my college loans and so on and so forth. But I've gotten to the point where I am today, which nobody could believe because of this American dream, because of this system of capitalism. And I've watched it over the course of my career, from whether it's interference in the stock market, and you're seeing this in the ape community and the retail investors who are trying to fight back against the tilted playing field in the stock market. You're seeing this in small business versus big business. You're seeing us move away from capitalism. And we've exported it. We exported it to China to their benefit, and we've imported more central planning to our detriment. And that is affecting the wealth creation opportunities, because with capitalism, the pie grows and there's an abundance ability for anybody to participate in that.
It's interesting. I mean, a lot of people talk about a communist takeover here in the United States or cultural Marxism. And then we think about the buying up of all these properties and how it will result in a generation, probably not millennials, maybe not necessarily Gen Z, but certainly Gen Alpha is going to be a generation of renters. What happens when there's an economic crash and not a single individual, or I should say for the most part, 90% don't own the property and can't pay their rent? And then you get a massive government intervention to a big firm saying, we're going to bail you out in exchange for partial ownership. And now the government becomes one of the largest stakeholders in owning all of the buildings that people live in. It may not be communism, but you're certainly walking very close to the government owning where you live.
Well, or potentially that you have all of these dollars coming in from China, which we've seen happen as well, and you have people Chinese people, not American Chinese people, but actual communist Chinese who are buying up properties as well. It's another possible way to infiltrate and take over the country by taking over the wealth creation opportunities.
Yeah. So I have some articles I want to show you real quick. This one's from May 28th, Forbes. Realtors will hate me for this, but here's 5 reasons why you absolutely shouldn't buy a home right now. Here's another one. Nearly 2/3 of millennials have home buyer regrets, new survey says. How about this one? Millennials who snapped up homes in the hot real estate market reveal their biggest regrets, from unexpected costs to high mortgage payments. Op-ed. Home prices are going through the roof. Millennials piling into the market is one big driver.
Can we talk about the government inflation piece of this as well?
Yeah.
So this is really fascinating. May report from the National Association of Home Builders said that government regulation adds $94,000 to the average price of a new home built.
Jeez.
Then go take a look at property taxes and how much those continue to increase every year. So just the government itself is adding more and more cost to home ownership. And if you go back to the market dynamics of supply and demand, how many times do people want to build more housing and they're not able to because of zoning laws or NIMBY or, you know, whatever it is? And so we have this constricted supply of housing as well. And so you've got all of these ways that the government is interfering in the market between the Fed, between the government inflation, between the laws.
Well, and it's these media outlets seem to be trying to discourage people from owning homes as well, right? So already you have it very difficult for millennials to compete with massive firms. Now they're being persuaded by the media, don't buy a house. Oh, they regret all of it. This is one of the craziest things to me. This millennials buy homes and regret it. I think these millennials, I've said it before, if you buy a house, if you save up for a down payment, you can get can you do zero down right now? I'm not entirely sure. I mean, it used to be a big thing.
So I think that they've actually cracked down quite a bit. As you know,
Right.
They've actually made it more difficult in many ways to get homes. They're not sort of doing this free for all that they
Right.
did. But as you know, it always ends up bifurcated, where people who you're like, well, how did that person get a house? Gets a house, and then people who have great credit and whatnot are finding they have to jump through a million different hoops.
For me, it was a 3 months of hoops, and they ultimately said no.
Yeah.
But I guess what I want to tell millennials, this message is: if you end up being able to buy a house, if you save up enough, you need as much as you need for the down payment. Maybe it's 5%. So if it's like a $200,000 house, you might only need 10 grand. And not an easy feat for a lot of people, but if you can save up, maybe you have a significant other. If you don't like the house, rental management companies can run it for you. And you are a homeowner and you're a landlord. It's crazy to me that they're trying to tell people not to do this. It's going to create corporations, companies that own the property and the people who don't. That's the direction we're heading in. And I'm going to tell you, man, it's going to be a dystopian future when people don't own anything. But that's the great reset.
It's these articles where they're like, home ownership is bad, people don't want it, is the most blatant manipulation I've seen in the last 2 years from corporate media about what we're talking about, the Great Reset. And it's sad that more people don't know that this is manipulation, that this is marketing, and that it's.
I mean, they could just say, maybe buy a smaller house. I mean, part of the issue is that we've kind of gone to this McMansion kind of thing. If you think about the square footage of the houses that people grew up in back in the day, well, I'm older than you, but back in my day when I walked to school uphill both ways, the houses were much smaller. And so we've kind of gone into this place where there's bigger, but there's all different kinds of options. And so maybe maybe you don't need the bigger house, but still buy something, get equity, get ownership. Ownership leads to wealth. We want to encourage prosperity for everyone. We want everyone to be in the game, because if you don't have everybody in the game, go ahead.
No.
Do you know where I'm going?
I was going to say, the message that we espouse is empower yourself.
Yes.
The message that these firms and the media says is disempower yourself.
Right.
Become weak. Give us the power.
You're
Give
the
us
victim.
control.
Right, exactly. Go on the government UBI. Let the government take care of you. Let them give you $12,000 a year, because that's going to make you wealthy.
It's not logical. That's what gets me, is these messages. This messaging is not logical. To tell people not to buy land, it's not logical. It's someone is doing this on purpose.
You guys remember that viral video where the guy's like, read a book, read a mother effing book.
Yes.
And then his one part, he's like, buy some land, yo,
right.
spinning rims. Yeah, buy some land, man.
But
you give that to your kids when you pass.
Go follow on Twitter Wu-Tang Financial.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wu-Tang Financial. They'll give you all these kinds of like great nuggets, kind of meme style. But the underlying message, absolutely. And maybe if the housing thing isn't for you, then go get equity in businesses, build a business. Oh, except for the fact that when you go do that, then you're going to get shut down. The government's your number one risk. And it's so interesting, the parallel between what happened with big and small businesses with the CARES relief and what you're talking about with the housing market. Because what happened, and we've seen it in previous bailouts, all this money goes to big companies. The CARES Act was primarily trillions of dollars to cronies who, by the way, didn't have to do anything to get it. They didn't have to apply. But if you were a small business, you had to step up and apply. And the biggest small businesses, Kanye West and Tom Brady, got PPP loans, but your pizza shop down the road didn't. And so how you said you had to, all that paperwork that you had to fill out? It's the same thing for the small business. You had to jump through the hoops. They made it hard. If you had a bad background check, they said, sorry, we can't give you the loan because you've got bad debt. They made it as hard as possible for the people who needed it the most, who, again, did nothing wrong. This was government mandate, taking their property, subverting their property rights. And they were the ones that had to jump through the hoops.
Is that because they just assumed those businesses were going to go out of business anyway?
They wanted them out of business. They didn't care. That is just extra people, riffraff, that can come onto the government dole, that can go work for Amazon. They want to consolidate power. This is central planning versus decentralization. This is crypto versus the Fed. This is what's happening retail versus the market. This is decentralization versus centralization.
And then it comes back to crypto.
Yep.
Why there's this move against it, why many poor people are convinced to get away from it, why the articles say China's cracking down, dodge this, don't go near it. And it's an escape. Right, that's how it's been described by a lot of people. We had Max Kaiser on the show, and he said it gets you out of that system. Maybe you can't own property, but you can own crypto, and that's something they can't control. And boy, do they not like that.
No, they don't. I mean, and that's potentially crypto's biggest risk right now, is that you have a stock market that's valued in dollars, you have an IRS that takes payment in dollars, and you have a U.S. government with a central bank pseudo attached to it that has a military, although the military's gone woke, so maybe that's not as big of a risk anymore. But they don't want to give up that power. They don't want somebody else to have that power and be in the in club. They're going to do everything they can to fight it, which is exactly why people are fighting back against it, which I think is great and I think needs to happen. But that's where this is going to come down to. And so that's what we need to be watching.
So all of this stuff, right? The war on small businesses, the telling people not to buy houses and taking away their property. What's the future you see if this trend continues?
So what's going to end up happening is that you have small businesses, you're going to have economic freedoms taken away. And you're going to have them taken away, and we've seen the seeds planted. It's under the guise of capitalism. Capitalism isn't working, they tell you. We're in late stage capitalism. Capitalism is just freedom, choice, and transparency with property rights. So there is no stages. It's just kind of like on a spectrum over here with free choice versus force, coercion, and control. And so they're going to blame capitalism. They're going to get people riled up and go, yeah, you're right. We should probably have the government in charge of more things. It's going to kill more businesses. And you're going to end up with some form of a pseudo centrally planned hybrid economy where maybe Amazon and 50 other companies get to do their thing and everything else is the government. And like you said, you own nothing, you have no wealth creation opportunities, and we have squandered the biggest opportunity for economic freedom that has ever happened in history in the world.
What scares me about all this is that there's this idea you will own nothing and you will be happy. But I don't believe that centralized economies or command control and authoritarianism actually work. It's this utopian pipe dream.
History has proven that they don't. We don't have any example anywhere in history that it's ever worked.
Right.
So yeah, you don't just have to believe it. You could just follow the data on that one.
So what happens is you get every generation or multiple generations, you get some crackpot despot saying, I should control everything because I'm smarter than all them. And then they realize calculating the economic requirements of billions of people cannot be done by a single mind or a committee or a council or a small firm.
Never.
It requires decentralized economics or, hey, free enterprise.
100%. I mean, this is, and go back to Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell or anything else, and people making free choices are going to tell the market what they need. And certainly at any point in time, there may be a slight dislocation, but it gets fixed. I mean, look at toilet paper, right? What happened in March of 2020? We had a problem. People decided to have a run on toilet paper. I don't know why that was the one thing, if there's going to be a pandemic, that you're worried about, but people cared about their behinds. I have a bidet. Wasn't a big deal to me, but I'm always ahead of the curve. So, Marco Rubio goes out and he writes an op-ed in one of the papers, oh, well, we really need to be on top of the supply chain. No, the market figured it out. In a couple months, there was more toilet paper than anybody wanted. And certainly there are going to be continued disruptions when the government intervenes. But if you let the market sort itself out, it's going to figure it out over time. Yes, there's going to be bad actors. There is bad actors in every system, or unsystem, as I like to call capitalism. But you have rules and regulations in place to take care of those specific things that infringe on property rights. But there is never going to be a committee of people who have your best interest at heart. I mean, that's the part that's the worst, is people seem to think that there are these people sitting in Washington who want them to succeed and that they're going to do what's right for them over their own best interest. That is just not human nature.
That's why representative democracy doesn't work, because those people do not represent others. They represent themselves. And it's up to the individual to represent themselves. We're in an ancient system right now.
It's back to Milton Friedman. Where are you going to find these angels to organize the economy for us? And this is the part where it's both frustrating and exciting, because I look at the people who were the former Bernie bros and progressives and sort of the independents where I sit, and even some of the conservatives. And a lot of us are circling around the same ideas, guys. We have the same issues. We have the same problems. We just haven't quite gotten there on the solution. And so I hope that people who may not, who may think the government is the right answer, takes a look at what the government's been involved in, how many laws we have, how much money they're spending, what their outcomes have been, and go, oh my God, we've got Frankenstein. We got to kill the monster here. And let's look at the other opportunity. Is there a way, even if you think the government somehow needs to be involved, is there a way to bring more transparency and more free choice to everything we do and keep the government out of the way? One
of the challenges is the media. We both love it, we hate it. But you mentioned more choices. If people don't know something exists, or how do they find it? How do they buy it? And it's something that I think it was Steve Jobs who said, how do they know they want it if they've never seen it? Yeah. So you have to explore and make things. But to this point, when it came to toilet paper and the gasoline thing that happened just this past month or so with the shortage in local shortages, it was the media. The media started telling people toilet paper was vanishing, so people got up and ran to the toilet paper.
Whatever you do, don't buy toilet paper. I mean it. Don't buy toilet paper. I mean,
do you have stock in Charmin or something? I'm short Charmin.
It's like the fire alarm where it's don't pull. All I want to do is just pull. Anytime they tell me not to do something, or they tell you that it's going to be a panic, that's what's going to set people off. It's nobody understands human nature, or perhaps they understand it very well and they're manipulating you.
You're right. Human nature is very interesting because language is not literal. It's, when you say don't get angry, what people are hearing is
calm down.
They're literally hearing get angry, get angry. The word don't's there, but they're hearing get angry, get angry. So it vibrates a different it makes people get. So you want to say be happy, be peaceful, not don't be angry. It's a double negative. It doesn't work in language, not in spoken language.
Calm down is the
calm down. Any woman, you've ever tell any woman to calm down, your marriage will end. They're on the spot. The two least effective words together in the human language is calm down.
I've noticed if you tell people you're happy, you're listening to me, then they start to listen to you, as opposed to in a fight being you're not listening. Then they stop. Then they're I'm not listening. Okay, I'm not listening. I'm not listening. And so you want to create positive.
Yeah, I mean, this is what improv is based off of. But fun fact with me, I actually studied with Second City. And so I've got a little bit of improv background. And so one of the things they teach you in improv is this technique called yes and. It's the, kind of ground floor, where is when somebody says something, instead of saying no and going in direction, you say yes. and then you go and you use that to build a bridge to something. And so it's acknowledging, like, yeah, I hear what you have to say, and like let's bring this into the discussion too. It's the same thing, but it's communicated in a way that's more inclusive and makes people feel like you're taking and listening to them, which, by the way, at the end of the day, a lot of this is about, is people just want to be heard.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.